All right, I'm Andrew Young. I'm on Workplace Consulting at Subnet, service provider.
I'm Brett Moffat, Chief Nerd at Systematic IT Consulting and Cybersecurity.
All right, and
hosting the session.
welcome to the Adelaide Microsoft IT Pro Community User Group Meetup for June. We've got a guest from Microsoft in the States today, talking about Microsoft 365, the Copilot, and AI, and some of the cloud partner programs. Welcome to the country. It's fun, I'll just keep it up and I'll just read it off. We acknowledge this land that we meet on today. It's the traditional lands of Ghana people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Ghana people as the custodians of the Adelaide region, and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Ghana people today. We also pay respects to the cultural authority of Aboriginal people visiting and attending from other areas of South Australia, such as that's awkward when I read the pages.
Yes, yeah. But it's really important. I think it's a really important thing to be able to have there. But yeah, it seems to lose meaning when you just kind of read it verbatim and everyone kind of reads it verbatim.
It sounds like the same everywhere else you go to.
Yeah.
It probably makes sense if you have someone of heritage come out and watch be part of it. I don't know if there are any.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a really good question.
We should be looking for that. Considering there's such a big drive for women in tech, there should also be some sort of inclusion with
Traditional owners. Yeah, true. It's true.
This is usually we talk random stuff. I'm going to try and keep the news intro a bit shorter this time, just to give our guests a bit more time to go through their content. So what's new? We had Microsoft Build just the other week, gone 2 weeks ago now. Catch up on all the latest news and announcements from the Book of News. So we'll send out the links after the presentation. We're covering across all different AI and development stuff that's come out. A couple of things to note, there's the Azure AI Studio, so yet another portal where you can manage your data and your training models for AI. There is more of a focus on AI safety and security.
Don't name your kids John Connor, is that what you're saying?
Don't give it the capture thing where it's like Cheryl Squares with Sarah Connor.
Yeah.
Home and I guess citizen developers. There's a Dev Home preview now, so if you check your store with Windows 11, you should see this new application. I've noticed that you can create your own widgets, I think, or at least once you've installed this, you can add on like the CPU and the RAM meters from your task manager into the widget thing that pops out in Windows 11. The thing that also people want to turn off because it's really annoying. But there's that, and yeah, it's good for the citizen developers to keep their own code in track, of course, tie into GitHub and create a dev drive and stuff as well. Another thing in this protocol. So yeah, at this point, Microsoft's trying to stick a Copilot chat in everything. Yeah, understand that, but you've seen ChatGPT, you've seen what it can do, what it can do. Thomas will come to on this in the Microsoft 365 side of things a little bit more. But yeah, pretty much everything is getting AI powered to it. I do like the new funky logo, the lights coming on. You can try and steal that.
Yeah, I'll go into our logo, yeah.
Other thing I announced was Microsoft Fabric. How many developers there are in our communities, but
Introducing Microsoft Fabric, a unified data analytics platform. One product, one experience, one architecture, one business model. Unified data is stored in OneLake, a SaaS data lake for the entire organization. Data is integrated and stored in an open format, allowing one copy to be used to train machine learning models, visualize data, and run SQL queries on the lake and data warehouse. A unified experience brings together all the tools data professionals need: pipelines for orchestrating data movement, experiments for training machine learning models, semantic models for defining key metrics, and much more. And for business users, Fabric brings together data for collaborating and doing ad hoc analysis in Microsoft 365. Unified governance, security, and compliance is built in for all your data. And with Copilot for Microsoft Fabric, AI helps everyone be more productive. Whether it's writing SQL statements, building reports, or setting up automations based on triggers. All your data, all your teams, all in one place. This is Microsoft Fabric.
I guess what I talked about was OneLake is essentially OneDrive for your data. Haven't focused on data analytics and train AI, I guess.
Yeah, it's going to be a really big piece for organizations that have large amounts of data that they report on and customer data and so forth that they bring back and forth, to be able to use that to be able to report on and so forth, have it all in one spot. That's great, but then be able to integrate it with AI and then be able to surface that in the rest of the organization. What is that next thing that that organization can do with that data based on AI? What can AI surface data? And we don't know what that is. As each of our businesses, we don't know what it is that AI is going to surface when we say, well, here's all our data. Tell me something about my business that I don't know. Who knows what it's going to come up with? So, yeah, I think it's a really exciting time for things like data. There's a lot to it. I struggle with SQL and DAX queries and JAX queries and all sorts of things. So, yeah, it's for other people to point stuff at. But I think it's really exciting what it can do for both small and large businesses.
Quick image again.
Yeah, to be able to pile all these together into one place. Yeah,
Logos.
and funky logos.
Data activator. A bit about me. So last month was the S&P Security Scholarship Program from Microsoft. This was something offered to Microsoft Cloud partners around the world. So I believe there's around 50,000 of them. And it was the first 100 or so that managed to sell a certain number of specific security licensing with the eligible to go to this training. Turns out the training was in Mallorca, Spain. So Microsoft did cover our flights and accommodation to go to this fantastic location, hosted by this group of beautiful people, one of which is one of the guest speakers today. So Thomas is on there. So yes, that is actually what the place looks like when there is sun. I did arrive and there was a hailstorm and thunderstorms happening. So it was like, you guys, if you're saying it's a sunny location, I feel like but yeah, it was good. It was 2 days just training and other discussions across Microsoft 365 Business Premium business and how partners are coming together to install, drive, deploy, and mark this kind of opportunity. So a lot aside from that, it was a lot of social networking. So getting to meet people from around the world are also mutual partners and just hearing how they're doing certain things, what works and what doesn't. And of course, meeting some of the people at Microsoft as well who I work with as part of the partnership. Yeah, so good times. I spent more time getting over there than actually being there. So yeah, definitely good to meet some new people. There were 20 Australians out of the 100 in attendance, so pretty high number compared to the other countries. A handful of them were actually from SA. So
There you go.
small world.
Country well above our weight. There you go.
Cool. So once the more depressing news, what's old? So if you've got any of the stuff still hanging about, please remove it or migrate to a current platform. Really pay attention to the October date there. So it's 2019, Windows Server 2012, so yeah, going out of support. Setting a skilling, of course, once the build's on or log on, so there's a cloud skills challenge. You've got a week left before this challenge closes. Essentially, you sign up, pick one of these halves, and just go through the Microsoft Learn content. Once you've completed that, you'll get an email saying thanks for taking time out and learning things, and you'll get to choose one of these exams to take at your pleasure in the next 3 months, I think, before September. End of September. So against your Learn account, you should see Build Cloud Skills Challenge. Really submit most of that.
Free exams are always good.
Yeah, particularly for like partners. If there are any partners in the room, there is always a requirement for skilling within your business. So those Azure admin ones are pretty good for people looking at this. Got our platform at 365, Learning on LinkedIn, Society Thread user group. That's also a meetup, and we're noticing a lot of mingling between the members of that group and this group. I don't know how many will actually come to us from that group. At the Office 365 user group, I haven't seen maybe he has, but I don't know if there's anything coming up. Yeah. The other group, I think, is still very strong, and the adoption user group, that's mostly out of governance remotely anyway. So yeah, we'll see how that's. Now it's coming. Microsoft Inspire is coming next month. There is a pre-day event for work. There's the Digital Workplace Conference happening in Melbourne. I feel like it's a mini Ignite event because we're not getting anything anytime soon. There are some pretty known speakers presenting at that conference. So if there's any way to make it down there, worth checking it out. Obviously, Ignite's close to the end of the year, and keeping track of your Microsoft Stream Classic workloads. Did get this one at the workplace. We can't save anymore. That's because the default setting will stop you from saving anything to the Classic Stream locations mid-May, but you can extend it up to mid-August. So the migration path is through, funny enough, the SharePoint Migration Manager portal. You're pointing source channels and videos and going, this is where it's living in OneDrive or SharePoint. And that's what the new stream is. It's stream or SharePoint/OneDrive. Seems pretty straightforward. I'll find out how bad it goes once I do a bulk migration, but it's a fire and forget kind of thing, just like migrating from file shares to SharePoint. So it could be worse. I would like to see some of the newer things that are teased coming out later in the year regarding the stream, new web parts of SharePoint, new pages, and how that ties into this move. So let's watch that space. Running out of slides. All right, cool. So yeah, I said we've got Thomas Apel. He is Director of Microsoft 365 Security and Marketing Business. I think that stands for. Yes, he was at the Security Scholarship. And yes, I did actually meet him in person. There's proof. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Thomas. Feel free to take control of the screen and do what you will.
Can you hear me, and can you see the slides that I just started sharing?
Hang on.
No, we can't see the slides yet.
Okay, we'll give it a second.
Don't mind me. Awesome.
Slides are up. Whole new way to work.
Perfect. Hey everybody, so my name's Thomas Abel. I have been at Microsoft for about 12 years. I've spent that entire time in the modern work team. And as Andrew said, I am in Redmond. I'm actually about 5 minutes away from campus here at home. So it is nearly midnight. So if I say something inelegant, just know that it's because my brain is very tired. But I'm happy to be here. I don't know how Andrew convinced me to agree to do a midnight to 1 a.m. call with all of you, but I'm excited to be here, and we'll go through it. You know, we spent some time out in Majorca kind of doing, it was a closed door set of sessions where we talked through what we see as the future of work with Microsoft 365, as well as kind of what we see as our obligation to partners. That may be more relevant to some of you than less, but what I've kind of done is gathered up the short version, the kind of 20-minute or so, 30-minute version of that. And I'll walk through it kind of quickly. What I won't do today is a demo of Copilot. You'll have to ask Andrew how cool it was to see it live and in person. It's just not something that we're really ready to do outside of NDA in kind of uncontrolled settings, especially when they're being recorded. But you can ask Andrew all about it. And then the last thing here, I can't see the room. So if people have questions, I don't know if Andrew, you want to have your laptop or someone else and you want to call me out in chat or something. But just, feel free to interrupt me, and then we'll make time as well at the end, and we can kind of do an Ask Me Anything that you have questions about around Microsoft 365 or, the journey over the past 10 years to get to Microsoft 365 if you have kind of interesting historical questions. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me just start with kind of how we actually are talking with customers today. When they ask us to talk about what we see as the future of work, we actually start at a very high level. And we will say, hey, the platform shift to AI is underway. It's coming faster than I think any of us ever expected a year ago. AI has historically had these winters where folks have been pretty negative about it, and then these moments in the sun where it gets really exciting. We're absolutely in one of those moments of the sun, but we think that this one's going to last a lot longer. It's not a flash in the pan, but really that this is the time where customers need to be thinking about, okay, what does it mean to go from remote and flexible work to now thinking about how, as they return to a new normal, how this new era of AI will change the way that they're working once again. We, though, are kind of viewing it as a multi-stage process. We don't think that it's as easy as just plugging in every single app that you have into ChatGPT. And I'll explain more about what we mean by that, but you'll hear us talk more and more starting at Inspire and throughout the next fiscal, that there's really a multi-stage journey that we think customers need to go on. And the first stage is landing on what we call foundational productivity, because Copilot is really more of a force multiplier on the productivity you already have. It's not magically going to make your employees more productive, and you need to have that baseline of foundational productivity to be successful. I'll talk more about what we define as foundational productivity, but what we like to start with is actually being very data-driven. What do we see out in the world, and what are the trends that are going on? And so I'm not going to do like the whole lecture here. I'm going to kind of skim over some of the really interesting data points that we think about as we look about the future of work. But again, I think this is a good overview of kind of what's going on in the world. We do this thing called the Microsoft Work Trends Index. We update it quarterly, but really once a year we do the big update, and we did that in early May. This is a set of different data points. We start with a giant set of surveys we do, but then we're also pulling in graph data that it's anonymized, as well as labor market trends from LinkedIn to try and understand what's changing in the world of work. And what we've seen is that there's major shifts happening in where, when, and how employees are working. That makes sense. We've all experienced it the past couple of years, first working from home for many of us, but now that return to work, what's exactly happening? But then also, when that's happening, we've seen massive shifts of the days of the week that are most popular and most busy for us. And then finally, how, where there's more meetings, there's more kind of, you could call it collaborative, but I think many of us in our meetings will see that it's like a couple people being super collaborative and a lot of people listening. And we have to think about how that all changes the tooling that we need in order to help people be more productive. Just to say where we are across the globe, about 52% of people are returning to the office. That changes quite a bit by country. I don't have Australia's numbers here on this slide, but you can see the spectrum. You have countries like Japan, where they are close to back to normal as a culture. They strongly believe they want to be in the office. It's a little funny. I actually visited the Microsoft office, and they're really struggling with this because Microsoft culture is not returning to the office yet, but Japanese culture is pushing them to return to the office, and so they are kind of doing 1 day a week, which is not common amongst their peer organizations in Japan. But I think the more interesting is why people are coming in. And this is probably my favorite set of data, especially if you're managing a team, to think about what is driving people to return to the office. This is a chart just to orient you. The x-axis is age of respondents. And so what you're actually seeing is that younger people want to come into the office more. And then the two colors are why they're coming in. Is it because they want to work with their peers more, or they want to be seen by their bosses? And what you're seeing is that people actually want to work with their peers more, and younger people even more so. We've been doing a lot of thinking internally around my organization, where we look at what's actually going on. And what we're seeing is that younger employees are struggling at a much higher rate than they were pre-COVID because they're lacking those mentorship opportunities. They're lacking the learning opportunities when sitting with other people. A great example is we were talking about how you manage a meeting, where the pre-conversation and the post-conversation that take place outside of the meeting are often as important as the decisions that are made inside of the meeting itself, where you're setting that tone and setting the context of the direction you want that conversation to go in. And in a truly virtual setting, you don't get as much of that. You just don't get those early in career learning opportunities. And so I just think there's a really interesting dynamic of how we can work better together as we kind of navigate this highly flexible environment. The net of all of this, and this is kind of the classic Microsoft pitch where we say we've created a problem, which is that, when we ask employees what's really going on in their life, they're saying that while we love flexible work, it's also very exhausting. We have way more meetings, we're back to back way more often, and I'm lacking the time that I used to have to either make connections or to think on my own and come up with my own strategic thinking. We think that AI is something that helps here. We think that AI, as I said before, is this force multiplier on the productivity that's already innate in employees themselves. And we view it as kind of this, what we call this AI employee alliance. But really what we mean is that while many people are concerned that AI might replace their job someday, even more, about half of the people that are concerned, plus a whole bunch of other people, are happy and excited that AI can lessen their workloads in key areas. And so the balance here is figuring out how can we supplement the work that employees are needing to do in ways that AI is really good at, while still relying on employees to do the great things that we know that they can do. When we look at what AI really does for different people, this is kind of 6 different categories that we see at the top of the list of demands across AI. I think in my head that there's really 2 subcategories under here. You can see things like finding info and answers, summarizing meetings and action notes, planning your day, admin tasks, as really summarizing and synthesizing information. Make it simple for me. The other half is much more creative. Analytical work, creative work, where I'm creating something new with the help of AI. And I think that's a nice way to think about where we're at in this journey. We know that models like ChatGPT can do a pretty darn good job around summarizing things, around organizing stuff that already exists. But a chat message, interface is not the way that you're going to get a lot of creative work done. It's not going to be the way where you get analytical work done. It's really, we're using a lot of ChatGPT today in kind of a kludgel to kind of force our workload into the way that it works. And so when we think about the evolution of Microsoft 365 Copilot, we're really excited about how it'll address both of these in a much more native context using the Microsoft 365 apps to help people get stuff done. So to then take a step back and connect this to really where we see the journey that customers will go on. I said before, start with foundational productivity and then Microsoft 365 Copilot. I'll talk more about how Copilot actually works. And so for the technical aspects of all of you, I think that'll be the kind of more interesting part of why we put it in this order. But just to be super clear, we are going to be telling customers that before they even think about Copilot, they need to get to baseline foundational productivity. And for Microsoft, we will define that as kind of 3 pillars of value that they need to be taking advantage of. First, Zero Trust Foundation. Second, simplified endpoint management. And third, productivity and collaboration. If you are an astute student of Microsoft 365 marketing, you'll notice that this is really the first time we've ever put them in this order. We normally start with productivity. It's our safe space. We love talking about Microsoft Teams and Office apps, and we don't normally lead with the security part. But we're flipping that to really say, hey, of course, yeah, you can have productivity, but you need the complete package here, and this journey that you need to go on as a customer to deliver the right security features to keep your identity and device security intact, as well as having great productivity, is super important when you then go to take advantage of the graph in order to deploy things like Microsoft 365 Copilot. To make that super real, I like this slide quite a bit. This is something where I think you can make it very real for customers to say, okay, what is the actual things that we think are milestones in capability around foundational productivity? Are you managing identities? Are you protecting sensitive information? Are you delivering Windows 11's best experiences, whether natively or in the cloud through virtualization? And then are you figuring out how you're handling remote, hybrid, and flexible work with Teams and other features? Once you have all of that, is when we can then start talking about how Copilot will ramp it up to the next level. So before I start going into then what is Copilot, what I will say is the challenge for the next kind of 6 months or so of how we help customers navigate AI is kind of what I call converting AI excitement into nailing this foundational productivity that they need. We have so many customers that we hear from who say, I just want the Copilot thing turned on. And we go, hey, it's actually not going to be that valuable for you because you're missing some of these fundamentals. And if you don't have these fundamentals, your graph data is not going to be as well organized. Your ability to leverage security around different sets of data within your graph so that employees don't get exposed to things they shouldn't get exposed when they start using Copilot is going to be at risk. And because of that, we're just not sure that we really want to turn it on for you until you're ready. So that'll be a journey and a struggle I think we all get to share in over the next 6 months or so. But let's talk about Copilot a little bit. With Copilot, we talk about it as kind of a shift that it's not autopilot, but it's Copilot. We were very intentional in the name. We actually spent way too much time thinking about what we call this thing. We were really struggling to not call it Copilot because we already had GitHub Copilot, and we were like, it's a great name. We wish we hadn't called GitHub Copilot because we'd love to use that name. Let's look for anything else that we can name it. And we came back. This was literally just about 2 weeks before we ultimately announced it, where we finally said, we can't think of a better name. Copilot just fits way too well. Because there really is this balance of, we're not going to do it for you. And I think you've seen across some of our competitors as well. They've all chosen names that are very similar in this theme of it doesn't just do it seamlessly for you, it helps you do your work. And that's a super important aspect, that sometimes Copilot will be magical and other times it will fail. And you as a user are going to need to be able to tell the difference between the two. So that leads us then to Microsoft 365 Copilot. It is not just ChatGPT. And that's a super important thing. Your customers are likely saying, oh, give me that ChatGPT thing. This is not the same. And what I mean by that is it's much more. It is taking large language models built off of OpenAI ChatGPT 4 inside of Azure, which you can go build apps on top of today if you want to. But it is combining that with the Microsoft Graph specific to that customer tenant and a user interface inside of Microsoft 365 apps. What that means is that you're delivering Microsoft 365 Copilot across Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, Teams, no logo, but Loop, OneDrive. You'll see it similar to the Windows Copilot video you just saw. It can crop up pretty much anywhere where we have about 2.5 inches of space on the right bar of the screen. And we're putting it pretty much everywhere. But what's really, was that a question? Sorry. Keep going. Okay.
No, giggles and laughing in the background.
Okay, good. But what I will do is I'm going to recommend that all of you kind of either write down or jot down. There's a little ak.ms link on the bottom left. There's a beautiful 2-minute chalk talk video of how Copilot works. I think everyone will get value in watching it. I'm going to verbally explain it to you rather than showing you the video. But in your free time, I think it's worthwhile for you to watch it. I said there's kind of 3 parts of Copilot system. There's probably a 4th, which I'll explain afterwards. But let me talk about how these 3 fit together. The first and foremost is the Microsoft 365 apps. That's the interface that your end user is getting exposed to Copilot in. I actually have it up right now in this Teams meeting. It's literally a bar in the right side of the screen. Looks very similar to what you saw in that Windows video. And I can ask it questions if I want to about how the presentation's going. It won't say much because it's just me talking mostly, because it's not able to pick up a lot of the room audio, but I can ask it to summarize what I've been saying, etc. When I ask it to say, summarize what's going on, what I've been saying, or what is the sentiment in the room, it is not just plugging that into ChatGPT and giving a response. What it's actually doing is what we call pre-grounding. It is taking that data and thinking about what context is relevant to that based off of the Microsoft Graph. And so we are thinking about things like, what are the acronyms that ChatGPT is not going to have any idea what it means, but we can provide context using, the good information we have around your tenant. We can attach additional documents to say, okay, this was a meeting about this topic. The transcript's only going to go so far, but let's include in that grounding process the deck that's associated with that meeting and the emails that were associated with setting up that meeting, and maybe the IM chat that's going on during the meeting. And we put all of that context around the question that the end user is asking about summarizing what's going on. That grounding is super important. If you think about the things that AI is really good at, generative AI is really good at, it's reading a lot of content really quickly, right? And so being able to enrich that user prompt with all of that grounding data enables us to create better asks to the large language models. In that grounding, because we're using Microsoft Graph data, we're able to respect the privacy bounds that exist around that content. So if I am asking a question, the Copilot system will know that I can only put context that Thomas Abel has access to. I can't go grab data that, Satya has a private deck on that Thomas isn't allowed to see in order to answer that question. And so we're able to inherently incorporate those security bounds into the conversation. We then send that kind of pre-processed prompt to our large language models, which are built and trained on top of both the OpenAI ChatGPT 4 models, as well as customized individually for each tenant that Copilot is existing into. This is where we start getting those synergies around understanding what acronyms are. Excuse me. Basically, some of the cool stuff that you've started seeing across the Viva suite that we've delivered, where we're able to kind of understand and teach people what different terms mean. So that large language model will be able to talk in your company's language. Then before we send that back to the apps to surface to the end user, we run that back through a post-processing process through the Microsoft Graph. This is where we enrich the response, where we're looking at not just what is kind of allowed to be said based off the context that was put in, but we add some things that we think are super important. We look back at what the large language model is responding with, and we match up what is the right citations. As an example, if you're summarizing an email thread, we will actually put in citations in the summary saying, if you want to kind of learn more about this summary statement, go to this specific section of this specific email. So we can show how complete kind of the story is. And with that, we're also going to put together kind of app commands that help the end app that this is being sent back to process the information that's coming in. Not super relevant for a query like summarize this meeting in Teams, but when you ask it to build a new PowerPoint slide based off of this set of context, well, ChatGPT or large language models are not going to be able to respond back by saying, create a box here in this part of the slide, and then create another smart art image over here, and create a title here, and create a background here. We actually have to post-process kind of what the LLM is saying should be there into recognizable commands that our apps can then consume to act on your behalf. All of that then comes together, and pretty good hit rate. It feels really magical. And then sometimes it just does crazy things that you have no idea what's going on. And that is why we're in private preview rather than GA at the moment. But it is going to be on a learning curve here. We're making a ton of progress. What I will say is kind of on this next slide, the official party line. Today, we've expanded access to about 600 enterprise customers. It is, I think I'm safe in saying this, we've done some interviews about it, there are meaningful and real capacity constraints when we think about our ability to run these services. And so we are expanding capacity as quickly as we can. At the same time, we're being very thoughtful in making sure that we're moving out in kind of a methodical fashion. Later this summer, we will be adding small and medium-sized customers to those private preview programs. It raises a really interesting question about how the solution works when you just have less data in your Microsoft Graph because you have fewer employees that are working in that tenant. And so we've got an interesting kind of challenge to see, okay, does it still feel magical, or does it start losing that specificity of how your organization works when you just have less data in the tenant? The number one and number two question I get is, okay, what is like the licensing for this, and what is the pricing? How do I buy it? We've previously disclosed that this will be an add-on service to Microsoft 365. And we talked about how foundational productivity for us is kind of a prerequisite. To turn that into licensing speak, we're saying that Business Premium or Business Standard or ME5 or ME3 are prerequisites. Those are what we would consider to be bare minimum foundational productivity before Copilot is really right for you. The last one on pricing, I'll be entirely transparent. There is no price today. We do not have a number. It isn't like one that I have in another deck that I'm just not showing you. We need to learn quite a bit more about what the real value is that Copilot is delivering. I'll give a quick anecdote just to give you like a perspective on why we're not locked on a price today. When we first started piloting Copilot for GitHub, the feedback that we got from a bunch of analysts was, oh, you should charge about $10,000 per user per year for GitHub Copilot. We're obviously not doing that. It's $10 per user per month, just to be clear. But their thinking was, hey, you're driving about 20 to 25% incremental productivity for a dev resource. And a dev resource, if you think about salaries today, is pretty darn expensive. And so 20% more productivity from that resource is easily worth, tens of thousands of dollars. We're not going down that route, just to be clear. But I think it's a good example of why we need to be very thoughtful here in understanding, okay, what is the real value that we're delivering? And then what is the right price point that we think will, kind of follow through, and what you've seen Microsoft do in most of our pricing and licensing, which is we want to broaden access And, we're a volume seller. We kind of sell to a lot of customers at a reasonable price. And so we just got to figure out that right balance point, knowing the capacity constraints we also have at the moment with Copilot. So the net of all of this is that you'll hear from a productivity standpoint, the Microsoft 365 pitch kind of evolve to not just be about here's what's great with Teams, but really to say, hey, we believe that foundational productivity is what unlocks the Copilot capability. I think you'll also have heard from this that we're finally figuring out how to use the greatness of the graph. We've talked for years about how awesome the graph is. It really is what differentiates the Copilot solution from all of the other generative AI solutions that are starting to get talked about. We're really excited about how we can be very grounded and real in the responses that we're able to give to users when they're asking questions, because we have such an innate understanding of the work that they're doing and of the work of their peers. There's other aspects of this that I didn't talk about. I think the semantic index stuff is super, super cool. If you don't know much about how search works today versus how kind of our brains process information, there's a couple videos as well. You can just search for like Microsoft 365 semantic index, and you'll get a good perspective on kind of how we're kind of rewriting how we do internal search within a tenant to map vectors of information together that can then be processed through the graph in order to make better responses. And yeah, like as I said before, likely we're not going to be broadly selling Copilot in the short term. It's going to be a little bit more of a journey for us. And so talking with your customers about how you get ready for Copilot with that foundational productivity is the highest order bit for us for the next kind of 3 to 6 months or so. I'm now going to shift gears a little bit and talk about kind of the other thing that I think we spent a bit of time at the summit on, which is how we at Microsoft think about growth through partners. I don't know the whole makeup of this audience here, but I apologize if this isn't as relevant if you're not a Microsoft 365 CSP partner. But my day-to-day job is thinking about how we grow using our CSP partners. And so, we talk about it. My team thinks all about these 3 aspects and how we're delivering on it. The first and foremost being how we're delivering the best of breed product on-ramps to enable partners to acquire customers in the best way possible. The second around how we're delivering premium SKUs with services surface area. That's a really fun phrase to say, but what we mean by that is that we're intentionally designing products that have partner opportunity on top of them. We don't believe that Microsoft can do it all, and so we want to give the hooks. That's what I mean by surface area, that allow you as a partner to build on top of the core solution that we're delivering. And then the last is tools for lifecycle management. This is my personal pet project. We can do so much more to build tools for partners on your behalf. And it's an area that I think over the past decade, Microsoft hasn't done a great job on. But I think, I think the Microsoft 365 team at least is trying to do a lot better of a job. We've actually taken product engineering resources and reallocated them to building tools for partners. And that's something that for the past kind of 2.5 years has been my little baby that I'm really excited about to share a little more with you. I'm going to walk through each of these fairly briefly, and then I think we'll just open it up for Q&A if you have additional questions on any of the topics we've been going on. So to start, we talked about, I mentioned best of breed product on-ramps. When we think about Microsoft 365, we break it into 2 halves. Sets of standalones that we think are great on-ramps to new workloads for customers, and then our core suites, which really are the best value solutions that we enable customers to use. I won't go through all of these, but of course our core is Business Basic, Business Standard, Business Premium. Our hero product, if you're not super familiar with these, is Business Premium, where we're combining all of the great productivity solutions with our security solutions. Again, I can't really see the audience if you guys are like, oh, I know all this. So I'm going to skim it. And then if you have questions about any of this stuff, you can ask that after we finish it. But I don't think you need to hear from yet another Microsoft person, what is Business Premium? What is the pitch? Beyond to say that, we believe that customers need this kind of comprehensive security layout that covers not just like device security or application security, but is also thinking about identity. Because when you complete all of these together is when you really have a real effective security solution. When I think about then that managed services opportunity and that surface area we create, I'm a math guy. That's how I think about pretty much all of our business. And so I always like this slide to kind of explain how we are approaching this problem. We are going in with what we believe with Business Premium is the necessary solution that everyone should have. But we're doing it in a way that delivers it as a suite with really great value to the end customer. That means that if you take everything that we think you need to have as a small and medium business, we're delivering it for about half the price on a per user per month subscription. As a partner, that immediate means like if you're thinking about margin and transactional volume here, you're actually not making as much money if you were to kind of juice that customer by selling more expensive standalones across all these workloads. But what we've seen is by building the product in the right way to have that surface area that allows partners to build on top of it, and to be honest, over delivering value beyond what the average small or medium business can kind of deploy themselves, excuse me, we actually create opportunity for partners to deliver higher gross margin managed services on top of that base license. That's kind of the core formula for Microsoft 365 for partners. Deliver value that is super compelling to end customers, but enable ways for partners to monetize on top of it. I hope you all see that today. I hope as you think about your partner businesses, you're recognizing that it's not just license revenue, but also services revenue. Of course, we've done a bunch of studies that show that that services revenue has massive potential and all of the different things you can do with it. I won't drain this slide beyond to say that what I generally hear from our reseller community is that on top of that base license, they're charging anywhere between kind of 40 to 60 US dollars of per user per month managed services that they're making somewhere between 60 and 80% gross margin on, which is a very lucrative business when you think about kind of the opportunity to really monetize that end customer that you've secured with Business Premium. So my third pillar that we were talking about, lifecycle management tools. I hope you all have heard about Microsoft 365 Lighthouse. I bet fewer of you have heard about the thing called Project Orland, but just to explain what these are, about 2.5, 3 years ago, we had a conversation with Rajesh, the leader of kind of the E&D, basically Windows Office division. And we said, look, we are underserving partners. It doesn't help that like our commerce platform continues to be in flux, which creates pain for everyone. But at least from a product perspective, we can do a lot better of a job to enable partners to be successful with Microsoft 365. And so we started by building these two big experiences. Microsoft 365 Lighthouse is our multi-tenant management solution for partners to be able to manage across all of their customers around security baselines, around service management, to be able to deploy standard policies across all of their customers through one portal. It's of course integrated and connected with a bunch of third-party multi-tenant management solutions as well. So if you're already using an existing provider of multi-tenant management, you can plug into Lighthouse. But we also think it's just very, very powerful as a standalone solution if all you care about is Microsoft 365. Project Orland is something completely different. And actually, there's a slide about Lighthouse. You can look at it in the slides afterwards, but it's really awesome. You should all be using it if you're not already to help you kind of scale your services arm. Project Orland, though, is the one that I just think is really awesome because it's basically how can we use AI before we had this kind of recent resurgence of AI. What we're doing is we are taking big data and profiling across all of the customers that are using Microsoft 365 today, and then applying those profiling rules to your install base of customers to identify where there are really exciting business opportunities for you. What we mean by that is a combination of like new opportunities where a customer maybe needs something more, or based off their current usage pattern, they look very similar to other customers that end up upgrading to a more premium SKU, or end up, hopefully not, churning out. And we highlight those as opportunities for you as a partner to engage with. We provide contextual insights around that customer to explain why we're flagging this as an opportunity. And then we connect that into the programs and tools that Microsoft already has to basically say, hey, take advantage of some of these things in order to make that outcome happen. To make that more real, just to kind of, oh, it's not building. Individual builds. Okay, to make that more real, let's use just an example. We are profiling the entire install base of business standard customers. And we are using our AI models to basically say, hey, these customers have a high propensity to upgrade to business premium. We're turning that into a strategy that we're exposing to you as the partner to say, okay, based off these different signals, we recommend you actually approach the customer with different lead messages to drive their attention. So as an example, you might have a business standard customer that is using a lot of mobile app access in order to into their tenant. Well, you should lead first and foremost with mobile device protection with MDB, rather than starting with identity protection with conditional access. This is a super exciting thing because we're actually being able to look at all of the best practices across all of the partners in the ecosystem and all of the customers, both inside of Microsoft with Direct or through other partners. And we're now exposing the same targeting tools that we're using for our inside sellers and our account executives in the enterprise to partners in a privacy compliant way. If you haven't heard of Project Orland before, I can give you a link here at the end where you can go check it out yourself. We are in public preview today. We will be making some additional exciting announcements, which you can probably guess if we're in public preview today, what we would announce at Inspire, but I won't spoil them yet. Beyond to say that Project Orland and Lighthouse together, we think are a really powerful set of tools to enable you to go end to end from ensuring service health and kind of security baselines with Lighthouse through to sales opportunities with Orland in Lighthouse. Just to give you a sense of kind of what's already there with Orland, these are all of the different scenarios that already exist today in the public preview experience, where you can look across your customers and see what are customer initiated trials that you may not know about that you want to go engage and convert into paid. What are customers that are at risk at churn or who have poor security profiles? Of course, the biggest risk or biggest cause of churn is usually a security breach where, a customer goes, oh, I was breached by security. I'm going to go find a different partner who's going to be better at keeping me secure. And so ensuring that all your customers are maintaining the right security level and using Lighthouse in order to deploy those security profiles is a great way to mitigate churn. And then the one that's really interesting is we have upsell modeling, where we're able to profile your install base and show you which customers are most likely to be ready to be upsold and how you should start those conversations to engage with them based off of their current usage data to signal which is the most valuable features to lead with. You can join that public preview. It is inside of Partner Center. So you'll actually see it as a tab inside of Partner Center. And next month, it'll actually be in both Lighthouse and Partner Center. And so it'll continue to expand and we'll add additional scenarios as our data scientists build them. So that was kind of my top things that I think we talked about. Andrew, I don't know if there's anything else that you're like, oh, he said this in Majorca, but he didn't say it here that I should repeat. But with that, I will kind of pause. And I don't know if there's questions about what I just presented or other questions you might have, but happy to stick around here and chat.
I think that covers most of the stuff we're allowed to talk about from the event. I'm just going to try and turn the camera on and let you see the room without breaking this.
All right, so I've turned it on. It's working for
Perfect. Hey.
There we go.
Excellent. Yeah, it'd be really cool to get to see the I guess, demonstration of Copilot that Andrew got to see. I guess.
Might have to stop the recording for that.
Yeah.
No. Okay, so that's all still NDA stuff at the moment, is it?
Yeah, I mean, here, let's turn off the recording and I'll see what I'm willing to do.
No,
I'll do that now.
We can do it some other time. That's fine.